Wind howled through the snow-covered forest of the Far East as Alex held his 12-year-old daughter Mia's hand. They walked quickly, trying to reach home before the snowstorm intensified. Their two shepherd dogs ran ahead, leading them through the deep snow. Snowflakes swirled around them, and trees creaked from the cold wind. Suddenly Hans, the larger dog, stopped, pricked up his ears, and pointed his muzzle toward a small ravine. Without a sound, he ran in that direction, and Rex, the second dog, followed him. The dogs moved with the coordination that comes from years of hunting and exploring together. Mia screamed, pointing to where the dogs had stopped, near a dark spot on the snow. Alex approached, and his heart began to beat hard when he saw the shepherd standing by a small tiger cub that was barely moving. With bloodied fur and wounds, the small body trembled with cold, and each breath seemed painfully difficult. The tiger cub breathed weakly, blinking with pain through its yellow eyes. Alex knelt in the snow, took off his gloves, and placed his warm hand on the small creature. He looked around and saw strange tracks in the snow, large boot prints. A few meters away, a shining bullet casing. Bloodstains on the white snow painted a depressing picture, clear tracks of heavy boots, a line of large-caliber bullet casings, and further away a trail of dark blood, where something large had clearly been dragged. Everything indicated that poachers had killed the mother tigress and taken her body, leaving the wounded tiger cub to die in the snow. As a biologist, Alex had always observed a strict professional code, not to interfere with nature. But now, before him lay a helpless, wounded creature, injured not by nature but by human cruelty. In this case, all professional principles were overshadowed by simple human duty. "Mia, we can't leave him here," said Alex. "He'll freeze to death, and Emma will kill me for bringing a tiger home." His voice was uncertain. He knew he was crossing an important boundary between humans and wild animals. "Please, Daddy," Mia begged with eyes full of tears. "We can't leave him here." She had clenched fists and a look full of determination that Alex couldn't ignore. Surprisingly, the shepherds showed no aggression. Instead, Hans gently licked the tiger cub's head, protective behavior they rarely show toward a natural rival. The dog even whimpered quietly, as if urging the owners to make a quick decision. Emma, Alex's wife and a veterinarian, was not pleased with bringing a wild animal home, but quickly switched to professional mode. Her hands calmly prepared the necessary tools and medicines, while her eyes showed worry and interest. "Alex, you know what this is?" Her voice trembled. "This is an Amma tiger. There are fewer than 500 left in the wild. And you brought a cub to our house?" Her words didn't sound like reproach, but like heavy awareness of the responsibility that had suddenly fallen on their family. "We had no choice," Alex replied. "From the tracks and casings, his mother was probably killed by poachers. They hunted here recently." He looked at the tiger cub's wounded paws and felt his determination growing stronger. Emma examined the tiger cub, who suffered from hypothermia, wounds, and hunger. After stabilizing his condition, she placed him in a box lined with blankets in the kitchen, convinced he wouldn't survive the night. The tiger cub was so small and delicate that it took them a long time to clean the blood and dirt from his body. "Even if he survives," Emma said quietly, after Mia fell asleep, "what will we do with a tiger? In a year, he'll weigh more than you." She looked thoughtfully at Hans, who had settled next to the box like a guard. But the next morning they found something incredible. The tiger cub had not only survived, but was now surrounded by two shepherd dogs who had formed a protective circle around him. Hans lay closest to the tiger cub, warming him through the night with his large body. The tiger cub's eyes, dimmed by pain the previous day, now looked around with curiosity and even a bit of vitality. Mia named the tiger cub Kai, a name meaning strength, which the little one needed to survive. In those days, a strong snowstorm hit the region, isolating their house from the outside world. Roads were covered with snow, telephone lines were cut, and there was no way to contact the Wildlife Protection Department. This forced isolation gave little Kai the time he needed to recover. Each day he grew stronger, his wounds slowly healed, and his fur began to regain its natural bright orange color. Then strange things began to happen. Just 2 weeks later, Kai began to show unusual behavior. The tiger cub didn't move like a typical cat or tiger. He began to imitate the confident and powerful gait of the shepherd dogs. When Hans sat and looked around the room, Kai sat next to him, perfectly imitating his posture. The family watched this with a mixture of amazement, admiration, and laughter. Watching Kai was fascinating. Each day his behavior became less like a wild tiger and more like a dog. He carefully imitated Hans and Rex. The tiger cub came when called, something very unusual in wild cats. He played tag with Rex, learned to fetch toys, and even tried to bark, making strange sounds that were something between a growl and a hiss. In the evenings he sat patiently at Alex's feet while he wrote notes about the tiger's behavior in his journal, as if understanding the importance of the research. One day, Alex witnessed an incredible scene. Kai, after sensing the presence of a small animal in the garden, immediately crouched in a hunting position, tensing his muscles for a jump, the natural instinct of tigers. But then Hans quietly growled, and Kai, as if remembering his dog identity, relaxed and backed away, wagging his tail as if apologizing. This mixture of tiger instincts and dog upbringing made Kai a truly exceptional being. He wasn't completely a tiger, but also not a dog, but something entirely new, never seen in nature. "I think he considers himself a dog," Emma laughed when Kai tried to dig in the snow with his paws like the shepherd's. "I've never seen anything like it." Her professional skepticism was gradually replaced by genuine amazement. She began keeping her own observation journal, noting how the tiger cub acquired dog habits while not ceasing to display unique characteristics of his species. 4 months passed, and Kai became a healthy young tiger with unusual behavior. He woke up with the 2 dogs, ate with them, and even learned to patrol the boundaries of his territory, as Hans had taught him. He became another member of the family, quickly responding to his name and greeting everyone at the door. The most surprising sight could be seen at night. The large striped predator slept peacefully, curled up between 2 shepherds, as if all 3 were of the same species. Kai's body combined the natural grace and strength of a tiger. His ability to instantly attack, move silently, and climb to incredible heights, with characteristics typical of dogs: loyalty to the family, protection of territory, and social awareness. As the winter frosts became harsher, this unusual trio grew even closer, creating an oasis of warmth and mutual care that spoke of their bond more than any words could. At 8 months old, Kai weighed about 70 kilo, and his size was beginning to pose a problem. He still tried to sleep on the sofa, though he almost completely filled it. When he ran around the house, he sometimes knocked over furniture. Once he broke a cabinet just by brushing against it. But despite his size, he was still gentle and careful with Mia, as if understanding his own strength. "We can't keep him in the house," said Alex, seeing how the tiger tried to squeeze into the doghouse he had already outgrown. "He needs more space." His voice conveyed not only pragmatism, but also concern for the future of their unusual companion. The family built a spacious enclosure for Kai, connected to the house by a special corridor. The tiger could freely enter the property, but now slept in his own shelter. However, they often found Hans and Rex sleeping in the enclosure next to the tiger in the morning. Kai formed a special bond with Hans. The older dog became not only a brother but also a mentor. One look or quiet growl from Hans was enough to direct the young tiger's behavior. Mia recorded several videos of Kai and posted them on social media. A tiger behaving like a dog quickly became an internet sensation. People began sending boxes of toys for the tiger and writing excited comments. Each new video of Kai playing with the shepherds or trying to bark gained millions of views. But fame also had its dark side. When the roads were finally cleared, Inspector Lin came to visit them in response to reports of an illegally kept tiger. However, his serious expression softened somewhat when he saw Kai greeting him, wagging his tail like a giant striped dog. "This is an Amur tiger," Inspector Lin said sternly, "one of the rarest predators on the planet. Keeping such an animal without permission is illegal." He tried to maintain an official tone, but it was obvious that the tiger's unusual behavior deeply intrigued him. He was surprised that Kai responded to his name and behaved like a dog, but the law was the law. Inspector Lin raised his eyebrows in amazement when the tiger brought him a ball and waited for the man to throw it. Possessing wild animals without permission is illegal, especially large predators, the man continued. I must report this to the department. In his eyes were compassion, but also strong determination to follow regulations. Alex immediately applied for a special permit to keep a wild animal. While waiting for a response, Kai continued to grow alongside his canine brothers. The tiger had already grown significantly, with more distinct stripes and a stronger build, but his behavior was still a strange mixture of two species. Every morning he followed Hans, guarding the perimeter of the property with the seriousness of a guard dog. 2 months later the response came. The application was rejected. The Wildlife Protection Department demanded that Kai be transferred for reintroduction into nature. The news hit like a bolt from the blue. Mia couldn't stop crying, and the shepherds, as if sensing something was wrong, wouldn't move away from Kai. They don't understand, Alex tried to explain to the department director. He doesn't know how to be a tiger. He thinks he's a dog. Alex presented all his research and notes, documenting Kai's unusual behavior. Instinct will prevail, the director insisted. His place is in nature. But a shadow of doubt appeared in his eyes when he saw Kai sitting and raising his paw in greeting at Alex's command. Mia posted a touching video on the internet that gained millions of views and attracted the attention of the entire country. Under public pressure, the department agreed to send a team of experts to evaluate Kai's situation before making a final decision. Hope returned to the family's hearts. The department director, a zoologist, and Inspector Lin spent an entire day observing Kai, how he moved, interacted with dogs and humans, and responded to commands. They were amazed by the tiger's level of adaptation. What impressed them most was how Kai helped Hans gather chickens in the coop, showing no signs of hunting behavior. In 30 years of work, I've never seen anything like it, the zoologist admitted. He really believes he's part of the dog pack. He gently scratched him behind the ear, and the tiger closed his eyes with pleasure. The department director acknowledged this was a special case, but the law didn't allow for exceptions. His face was impenetrable, but the tension in his shoulders betrayed an internal struggle between duty and compassion. A tiger is a wild animal. Its place is in its natural environment, but his words sounded less certain when Kai rested his head on the director's knees, as if asking for protection. The zoologist agreed that Kai was too domesticated to survive in nature. After long discussions, they proposed a compromise. Everyone gathered around the table, where tension mixed with fragile hope. We'll release him in a sanctuary 200 kilometers from here, the director suggested. We'll put a GPS collar on him to track him. If he manages to adapt to wildlife, that will be the best outcome. If not, we'll consider other options. This wasn't what the family wanted to hear, but it was the best they could hope for now. The day of farewell came too quickly. Mia cried, continuously, hugging the neck of the tiger who had almost reached maturity. Emma prepared a special package of food for 2 weeks, though she knew Kai had to learn to hunt. Each piece was packed with care and deep concern for his future. Alex put the GPS tracker on the tiger's collar. His hands trembled as he stroked the thick orange fur for the last time. He remembered every day from finding the small wounded tiger, cub, to watching him mature into the powerful creature he now had before him. "You're strong," he whispered to Kai. "You can do it." His voice conveyed hope, but his eyes betrayed fear and doubt. But the most heartbreaking reaction was that of the 2 shepherds. When Kai was placed in the special transport cage, Hans and Rex howled and barked continuously, trying to prevent the inspectors from taking him away. Hans stood like a wall in front of the vehicle's door, and only moved when Alex gave him a command. His loyal eyes seemed to ask why they were taking away a member of their pack. "He'll be fine," Emma tried to calm everyone, but her voice trembled. She watched the departing vehicle with an expression as if she were saying goodbye to her own child. At the release site, a forest valley with a nearby river, they opened the cage door. Kai emerged cautiously, sniffing the fresh air. He looked around the forest, then turned to look at Alex and Mia. In his eyes was visible confusion and something that looked like pain and quiet sadness. The tiger didn't understand why his only family was abandoning him. For a moment it seemed the predator wouldn't leave. Then a noise in the bushes caught his attention. His wild instinct activated, and Kai jumped toward the sound with the speed and elegance of a true hunter. In one moment he disappeared into the forest. A ray of sunlight illuminated his orange fur, and then he dissolved among the trees forever. Mia cried in her parents' arms on the way home. The GPS tracker blinked, indicating that Kai was going deeper into the forest. Each movement of that small point on the screen was like a blow to the heart. "He'll be fine," Alex whispered, trying to believe his own words. "This is his place." But his eyes remained fixed on the screen, watching the tiger's movements with a mixture of fear and hope. However, when they reached home, Hans and Rex refused to enter. They sat on the porch, looking toward the distant hills where Kai had disappeared. Their loyalty to their unusual brother was unwavering. A week passed since Kai's release. Mia checked the GPS data every hour, tracking all his movements. Initially it seemed Kai was adapting, cautiously exploring new terrain, looking for shelter and water. But his movements were hesitant, as if he were searching for something he couldn't find. At home, the two shepherds fell into deep depression. They refused to eat, didn't play, and spent hours sitting on the highest hill of the property, staring in the direction where Kai had disappeared. Hans sometimes whimpered quietly, as if calling his striped brother to return home. On the 8th day, the GPS tracker showed the first unexpected movement. After days of aimless wandering around the reserve, Kai suddenly began moving in a specific direction. Alex, who constantly tracked the tiger's movements, was the first to notice this. "Look, he's not wandering aimlessly. He's heading somewhere," he said, pointing to the screen. Incredibly, the route led straight to their home. Alex double-checked the coordinates and silently showed the screen to Emma and Mia. "He's coming back to us," Mia whispered, with eyes brightened for the first time in days. The entire family's hearts filled with trembling hope. Even Emma, always cautious with predictions, couldn't hide her excitement, and Hans, as if sensing the change in the family's mood, suddenly stopped whimpering and stood by the window, alert, staring into the forest. On the 10th day, the GPS suddenly showed that Kai had changed direction. He was moving away from home. The family's hearts sank. "His instincts have taken over," Emma said gently, suggesting that perhaps it was best that Kai had found his way in nature. But 12 hours later it became clear. The tiger had circled around a large populated area, choosing a longer but safer route. After this detour, he headed straight home again, not deviating from his course. Even Alex, with all his experience as a biologist, was impressed by such determination. With each passing day, Kai's movement pattern became clearer. This wasn't random wandering. He moved with purpose to return home. Each new GPS update confirmed what they suspected. Kai was coming back. Initially, his journey was slow and full of stops. He frequently paused to hunt or rest, but after each stop he always continued in the same direction. Neither mountains nor rivers could force him to change course. Alex calculated the distance. Kai had covered 50 kilometers in the first 5 days. For a tiger, this was an incredible achievement, especially considering the difficult terrain and the need to hunt along the way. "This can't be coincidence," he told Emma. His eyes filled with hope they hadn't seen since the day they parted with the tiger. As they analyzed the data together, it became clear that indeed it wasn't coincidence. The GPS showed how difficult Kai's journey had been. Every kilometer he covered was a triumph of will over instinct. On the 6th day, the tiger reached a wide river, swollen by spring melts and with strong currents. A normal tiger would avoid deep water at all costs, but Kai, trained by dogs who weren't afraid of water, found a narrower crossing and swam across. The GPS data showed how he fought against the current, but never deviated from his path. On the 7th day, Kai reached a busy road. The GPS indicated that the tiger waited hidden in bushes by the road for nearly 3 hours. Then, taking advantage of a break between passing cars, he ran across the road at full speed. His ability to adapt and his patience revealed extraordinary intelligence and determination. But the most dramatic challenge came on the 9th day of the journey. The GPS signal indicated that Kai had entered an area marked as a bear reserve. Forest rangers had warned them about a large population of brown bears in that vicinity. Alex felt a knot in his heart, thinking about his extraordinary companion. The GPS markers showed that Kai had stopped deep in the forest. His signal didn't move for several hours. Suddenly, the GPS showed chaotic movement with violent changes of direction. Alex, watching the screen, turned pale. He and Emma stared at the blinking dots, praying for Kai's safety. "Something's happening," he told Emma. "That's how an animal moves during a fight." His voice was strained to the breaking point, and his hands clenched into fists. 8 minutes of intense, chaotic movements followed. Then Kai stopped again at one point and remained there for a full hour. The family sat in silence, looking at the screen, fearing the worst. When the signal finally began moving again, everyone breathed a sigh of relief, but Kai's speed had significantly decreased. Even Hans, who had stayed close to Alex the whole time, whined quietly, as if sensing the danger threatening his brother. "He's injured," Emma whispered, "but he's alive and still coming to us." Her voice expressed pride in the tiger's endurance and willpower. Later, when forest rangers analyzed the GPS data and examined the terrain, they confirmed that there had been a fight between the tiger and a large brown bear. Fight traces, tufts of the tiger's orange fur, and drops of blood indicated a fierce battle. The fact that Kai survived a fight with a huge brown bear, usually heavier and stronger than a tiger, was almost a miracle. Claw marks on tree bark revealed the violence of the clash. Every obstacle that Kai overcame, rivers, highways, the fight with the bear, and territories of other predators, surprised the family. Books about tiger behavior claimed that these animals never migrate such long distances, let alone in a constant direction. But Kai wasn't an ordinary tiger. He was guided by love for his extraordinary mixed family. On the 12th night, the worst happened. The GPS signal completely disappeared. The last recorded location was a place with large rocks and dense trees, about 80 kilometers from home. The tracker's silence was deafening for the family, who had grown accustomed to constant monitoring. Alex and Mia immediately went to the location. They searched all day, calling for Kai, checking every cave and dense bush. There was no trace of the tiger, only a piece of torn GPS collar caught on a low branch. This small piece of leather and metal was the only link they had left with the missing animal. Alex tried to imagine what could have happened. Probably Kai had caught the collar on something in the forest, tried to free himself and damaged the device. But could the tiger continue his journey? Was he injured or something worse? These questions tormented Alex as he and Mia returned home with heavy hearts. The next 3 days were long and painful, full of waiting and fragile hopes. Mia was so devastated that she barely left her room. Emma contacted all forest ranger stations and veterinary hospitals within a 200-kilometer radius. Every time the phone rang, their hearts raced, but there was no news about the tiger. Alex continued studying maps, trying to predict Kai's possible route after losing the signal. Based on the tiger's average speed before the GPS interruption, he calculated that Kai would need another 3 to 4 days to reach home if he continued moving in the same direction and hadn't sustained more injuries. Red lines drawn by his trembling hand stretched from the last signal location. Each pointed in the same direction: home. Kai's fur will help him survive the cold, he reasoned aloud, but he still needs food and water and must avoid other large predators, wolves, bears, and even humans. His eyes showed pride in Kai's endurance, mixed with deep concern for his fate. The truth was that Kai's chances of survival were diminishing with each hour, but no one dared say this aloud, clinging desperately to quiet hope. On the 3rd night, after the signal disappeared, as the family tried to eat dinner in silence, the 2 shepherds suddenly jumped up as if struck by lightning. Hans barked furiously and ran to the door, with Rex following closely behind, wagging his tail with enthusiasm. Their sudden reaction was so intense that the plates on the table rattled. Alex quickly opened the door with his heart beating hard. At the edge of the yard, in a beam of spotlight, stood a tall, lean figure. The silhouette didn't move, only its tail slowly swayed from side to side. Kai, dirty, thinner, without the GPS collar but alive, looked straight at the house. His yellow eyes gleamed in the darkness like two small moons. He had fresh wounds on his side and was lifting one paw, but even from a distance it was clear. This was Kai. Time seemed to stop in that moment. And then something incredible happened. Kai made a sound, not a tiger's roar but a strange hoarse bark, as if trying to imitate his canine brother's greeting. It was the sound of coming home. Later, analyzing Kai's journey using partial GPS, data and distance calculations, Alex estimated that the tiger had traveled no less than 200 kilometers of varied terrain, 2 major rivers, a highway, a populated area, and territories of other predators, all in just 16 days. The line on the map tracing his route was almost straight, as if guided by an internal compass. Later, experts tried to explain this behavior with theories about geomagnetic navigation, highly developed spatial memory, and extraordinary migratory instinct. But their scientific explanations always seemed insufficient compared to what the family had witnessed with their own eyes. For the family, there was only one explanation: attachment. Kai hadn't just returned to a place, he had returned to his family. His incredible journey was driven by something stronger than instinct, love and bond. The moment Kai saw the 2 shepherds in the yard, his posture completely changed. He ran to them, not with the cautious steps of a wild tiger, but with the eager energy of a dog meeting his family. His powerful body moved with surprising lightness, despite fatigue and visible wounds. The 2 shepherds ran to meet him, and the 3 animals became a whirlwind of joyful sounds and wet fur. Mia, sobbing, ran out and knelt beside them. Alex and Emma followed her, unable to believe what they were seeing. Even in the porch lamplight, they could see Kai licking the dogs' faces and the dogs licking his, greeting him like a brother after a long separation. Kai, a wild tiger, had traveled over 200 kilometers of unknown terrain, following an almost straight line to the only home he knew. His journey contradicted everything scientists thought they knew about tiger behavior and told a story of a bond that transcended all natural boundaries. The family led Kai to his enclosure, where Emma immediately began examining him. The tiger had lost weight and had a deep wound on his front paw, probably where he had caught the collar and tried to tear it off. On his side were bear claw marks, scars that would remain forever. But otherwise he was surprisingly healthy after such a long journey. His eyes sparkled as he looked at his human family as if saying, "I'm home." "He went through hell," Emma whispered, treating his wounds. "But he made it. This isn't just a young tiger, this is our Kai." Alex called Inspector Lin, who came the next morning, unable to believe the tiger's incredible return. His official demeanor gave way to open amazement when he saw Kai lying peacefully between the 2 shepherds. "This is impossible," he muttered, watching Kai nestle between the dogs as if he had never left. Tigers don't do this. They don't cover such distances just to return to a specific place, and they certainly don't seek the company of other species. His hand reached out almost unconsciously to stroke the tiger's magnificent fur, still not being sure if what he was seeing was real. Mia knelt beside Kai and gently stroked his fur. "He doesn't believe he's a tiger. He believes he's part of our family." Her words sounded truer than any scientific theory. Lin looked at Alex and Emma. "I have to report this. You know they'll want to take him again, maybe even farther this time." His voice conveyed not only regret, but also a sense of duty. But when Lin looked into Kai's eyes, those wild yellow eyes full of undeniable love, he sighed. That look said more than any scientific data or law. "I'll propose another option. I can't promise anything, but there's never been a case like this." He was already mentally drafting a report that would change how scientists understand the social behavior of tigers. 2 weeks later, the director of the Wildlife Protection Department returned to the house personally. He observed Kai and his environment, how the tiger played tag with Rex, patrolled boundaries with Hans, and slept curled up next to the 2 dogs. Every action of the tiger contradicted entrenched scientific beliefs about large predators. "What we see here contradicts everything we know about animal behavior," the director admitted. "Kai is not just a wild tiger, but he's not a domestic animal either. His gaze followed every movement of the tiger with professional curiosity and human admiration. The final decision was made a month later. The family was granted an unprecedented special permit. Kai could stay under the condition that his case would become part of a long-term study of animal behavior and social bonds between species. This wasn't just an exception to the rules, but recognition of an exceptional case that could change our understanding of wild animals' capabilities. The family had to build a large enclosure for Kai and the two shepherds, undergo regular inspections, and participate in educational programs. Alex and Emma immediately agreed. Mia jumped with joy, and Hans and Rex, as if sensing the good news, barked excitedly. A year later, their home became a small local landmark where groups of students and researchers came to observe Kai and his canine brothers. Alex published a scientific article about this exceptional case, which quickly became one of the most cited works in the field of behavioral zoology. Mia, now 14 years old, decided to also become a zoologist. Her school project about Kai won first prize at the National Science Fair. Kai grew into the wild beauty and power of his species. He was now a magnificent tiger, weighing over 200 kilograms, sitting on a high rock in his enclosure and watching over the house with the same attention Hans had once shown. No one could deny that he had found the place where he belonged. His striped body radiated strength and elegance, but his eyes had a sweetness unusual in wild tigers. When scientists from around the world came to study Kai's case, they usually asked the same question: how could a wild tiger perceive himself as part of a pack of dogs and a human family? Alex would usually smile and simply answer, "Sometimes." Science must make room for miracles, and Kai's miracle is that he taught us to see family beyond biology and instinct. Kai's extraordinary journey from an injured puppy to an exceptional being living between two worlds proved a simple but powerful truth. Sometimes attachment is stronger than instinct, and family in the deepest sense is not where you were born, but where you are loved and where you belong. Every evening when the sun sets behind the mountains, Kai, the majestic Amur tiger, sits between his two faithful shepherds on the hill and contemplates the sunset. Three silhouettes against the setting sun, a symbol that love and belonging can sometimes be stronger than nature itself.